In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Please be seated. Today is the first Sunday of Advent, where we begin a new year, and we go into this preparatory season. Most of us, when we think of Advent, we think of preparation for Christmas and the celebration of the birth of the Messiah, and we're already starting to think about mangers and babies and angels and all of that. But the first Sunday of Advent isn't about that. In Advent, we celebrate two Advents. And today, our focus is on the second Advent. Advent, of course, is a word that means coming or arrival. Today, our focus is not on Jesus' birth, but on Jesus' second coming, when he comes with power and glory to end the age and to judge the world, judge all the people. And so he starts off, our gospel today is all about a warning to be ready. And he starts out telling his disciples about that day or hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. Boy, I wish everybody would just read that and believe it. I keep running across all kinds of fantastic theories that people have with all kinds of signs that they've seen that they're just sure the second coming is going to come at some particular time or something we have to do to make it come. None of that is true. Jesus, actually, this is one of the places in the Bible we're supposed to take literally. He said, I don't know, nobody knows when that's going to come. And he ended, as you saw, as he ended the reading, he said the same thing. We don't know. And yet we're supposed to be ready. What does that mean? And he went through this thing talking about, comparing it to the days of Noah before the flood, where everybody was going about their normal business, doing their regular thing, and then suddenly they were washed away in the flood. He said it's going to be like that. And he goes through these examples. 2 will be in the field, 1 will be taken, 1 will be left. 2 women will be grinding meal together, 1 taken, 1 left. It seems like one of those wild stories like we hear about the Left Behind series and the rapture and all of that. But it's actually just the normal human condition. We don't know. We don't know when Jesus comes, and we don't know when our last breath is going to be. The first time I ever preached on this, 30 years ago today, still a seminarian at the time. If you remember back in 1989, in October, there was a big earthquake in the Bay Area. Happened right during the World Series. And there was a section of freeway in Oakland that was a double-deck freeway. And it collapsed. And everybody who was driving through at the time of the earthquake, most of them were killed as that highway collapsed on them. Now, if you'd been a minute or two ahead of that and passed through, you went ahead and drove home through the earthquake and were fine. Or if you were a minute or two behind, all the traffic stopped, you go, oh, it's something terrible has happened, but you were fine. But if you happened to be right there, all of a sudden, everything just came down and crashed on you. It was all over. And that's the kind of surprise thing we don't know. Another example, when I had just come to Branson many years ago, there was an employee of Silver Dollar City who was struck by lightning out at the employee break area. And it wasn't raining. In fact, there weren't that many clouds in the sky, but lightning struck the tree he was standing over and it killed him. And there were a lot of bad jokes at the time, and then there was a lot of people who also were convinced that God had killed him on purpose because he was, after all, struck by lightning. But as I pointed out to anybody who would listen, he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, a big electrical charge built up in the cloud, and it needed to go to ground, and it was going to take the easiest path, and that turned out to be the tree at the employee rec area, and he just happened to be standing there when it happened. Wasn't God's will, wasn't his will, wasn't anybody's will, and yet he wasn't expecting to die that day. And it happened. So this is the normal human condition. We don't know. And we make plans, and we expect that we'll do something next year or the year after or the like, but we don't actually know. One of the few gifts that I got out of having cancer 20 years ago was having my time horizon suddenly shorten for a period of time when I wasn't expected to live more than a year or two. And I suddenly realized all these plans I had made for what I was going to do later and the like, they may not ever happen. I feel very fortunate that I am here where I am today. And I sometimes worry that I'm forgetting that lesson, that I don't realize how precious life is and how we've only got the time we have, whatever it is, to do something in this world and in this life. Now that's really what Jesus is getting at. For all of the talk of the time and whatever, how do we be ready if it could be any time? And there's really only one answer to that, and that is to live a life following the teachings of Jesus. Because then, no matter what happens, when it happens, we're there. Now, here's some good news. We're already doing part of that, at least, because we're here today. And part of what Jesus tells us to do is to come together in community, to pray and to support each other, one another, and to share the sacraments. And that's part of it. Another part is to live in hope. Remember that first reading from chapter 2 of the book of the prophet Isaiah. In the days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of mountains and shall be raised above the hills. All nations shall stream to it. Many peoples will come and say, "Come, let us go to the mountain of the Lord." And they will, that wonderful thing, they will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. This is a vision of hope. A vision of what God intends for human beings to be, for us. And while that world still doesn't exist, we still have plenty of war and disease and violence. We hold on to that vision of hope. That is actually, in God's eyes, more real than the broken world we're in now. Even though it hasn't come in its fullness yet, this is God's promise. We hold on to that. And then what else do we do? We simply go about sharing the love and mercy and care of Jesus Christ as he demonstrated to us. Being kind and giving to the sick, the vulnerable, the poor, the immigrant, the refugee, in all the various ways that we can show and experience God's love. That's what we do. And we don't have to do huge, big, expensive programs or fantastic things. Just when the opportunity arises where we can share the love and kindness of Jesus Christ, that we do that. If that's the life we're living, we're ready. Whenever that time may come. Whether it be Jesus' return, which could be today or tomorrow, or it could be another 1,000 years or more, or whether it's the end of our own life. Either way, living in faith, living in the Christian community in hope and in love, that's how we prepare for this unknown. And once we've done this is the hardest part. Once we've done that, we can stop worrying. Because we know that we can trust God, and in God, it will all be okay. Amen.